Okay. Hello. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, I guess. At 11 o'clock is afternoon, right?
What?
11 o'clock is afternoon, 12.
After 12 noon is that?
Bein Hashmashot. Happy Bein Hashmashot. Okay. So 2 weeks ago, we did Pasuk Bet, which we said means Yishakenim and Shikos Piu, Ki Tovim Dodecha Meyayin. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there's all kinds of wonderful things in this great world that you created. But what do I want? I want you, Hashem. That's the greatest pleasure. That's the greatest enjoyment. That's what I want. Okay, and we said that pasuk is talking about Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave over the first two Dibros himself. Yisrael heard, Yisrael saw. There was this amazing experiential experience of whoa, wow. And then because it was so intense, and they had actually died and were resurrected, they said, wait a second, maybe from here and on we'll hear from Moshe. And that until this day, Klal Yisrael regrets that, right? What a regrettable thing. Why did we do that? Why did we say, no, we want to keep hearing directly from you, Hashem? And this is the regret that we have all the time, right? Where we have this orot, right? This great light, this great recognition, this great consciousness of Hashem's presence, right? And then somehow, like it gets lost, we lose it, or we turn to do something else, or oh my gosh, like I gotta go, do something, or all of a sudden thoughts pop up into our mind, or we make a choice that we regret, right? I should have stayed there. I should have, done a little bit more. I should have stayed in that place where I was really close to Hashem. So that's the regrets that we have. So we say, Hashem, we have so much pleasure in this world, right? We have all these great things. We have amazing food, we have clothes, we have houses, we have everything, right? We have
just look at the world, the flowers, the nature, it's amazing.
Everything. We have everything, Hashem. But what do we want? We want you. We choose you. That's what really, if you ask me, right? Remember I told you that story that I took my 3-year-old son to the Kotel. I said, you can daven for whatever you want, to be a Talmud Chacham, for Mashiach, whatever. And he lifts his hands up and he says, Hashem, give me mastikin, right? Give me gum, because that's what a kid wants, is gum. So the question is, when we have this opportunity, right, to ask Hashem, what do we want, right? Do we just give the adult version of gum, right, which is probably like to win the lottery or something, right? So you can buy lots and lots and lots of gum. Is that what I want? Like if I have one thing for you, Hashem, right? Or am I asking for Mashiach? Am I asking for, even for myself, like Hashem, you give me one thing right now. You know what the one thing I want right now is to chase out anger from my heart, right? That or whatever we want, even for ourselves, which is tremendous kirva from Hashem, because anger is a blockage from feeling Hashem. So it's all the same thing in different words. So Klal Yisrael goes on. Glasses. Sure. Yes, Baruch Hashem. Okay. The next pasuk Gimmel reads, L'reach shemanecha toivim, the smell of your oils is so good, shemen turak shemecha, and your name is like the pouring of oil, al ken alumos ahivucha, therefore all of the maidens loved you. Okay, so again, L'reach shemanecha tovim, the scent of your oil is good, it's so good. It's in the plural, tovim, which means very, very good. Shemen turak shemecha, and your name is like the pouring of oil. Alken ala mois. Therefore, the maidens ahivucha, they loved you. So Rashi tells us, l'reach shemanecha tovim, shem tov nikra al shem shemen tov. A good name is called on the name of a good oil. How does that work? Don't worry, Rashi is going to tell us. Shehirichu bahem afsei oretz asher shamu shemecha hatov ba'asotcha noraot b'Mitzrayim. When someone has a good reputation, right, it spreads. A good name is a very valuable thing, right? One of the horrible sins that we have is lashon hara, ruining somebody's good name, embarrassing them, doing something that, even calling them by a nickname, which is asur, it's forbidden. So here Rashi is telling us, what does this mean? Oil is like a name, right? When we're talking about oil, we're talking about scented oil, perfume, right? So when a person pours perfume from one bottle to another, everything around everyone around it and everything around it, things pick up scent, right? And everyone around it begins to smell better. The same thing with the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When we talk about the nisim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then even people far distant from Hashem, they begin to smell good. They acquire Hashem's scent. Their ma'asim improve. They improve as a person. Their neshama is enhanced. And Hashem's good name travels far and wide, right? Scent is not something which could be contained. Think about the opposite, right? What's the opposite of a good scent? Pollution, right? Or harmful, right? Harmful chemical. Good scent, we mean not just a good smelling scent, but a scent which is good, right? You know, the example that the Gemara, Rabbi Nachman talks about this extensively, is shemen afar simon, right? Shemen afar simon is this persimmon oil, very, very expensive oil. It was considered top of the line, more than Coco Chanel 5, right? The perfume of the times of Chazal. And this shemen afar simon, right? When somebody comes to buy it, so it's like a whole tekes, the whole ceremony. And the seller says to the buyer, "Come, right? Stand here while I measure out your oil." Right? All the other oils, they're on the shelf already pre-measured. But why does the seller want the buyer to be present when he buys the shemen afar simon? So he will be enriched. The scent will stick to him, and he will now smell so good. And not just the buyer, but also the seller. I want to get a little whiff before I give it away, right? So here I'm going to pour it so we can both enjoy together this scent. That's the way that what Kiddush Hashem works. What is Kiddush Hashem, right? Kiddush Hashem and Chilul Hashem, we talk about it all the time. Oh, this is a Chilul Hashem, or this is a Kiddush Hashem, right? I wish we talk about it a little bit more, right? In America, if you go to day school or Beis Yaakov in America, it's like pounded into you, right? You better behave when you go out because it's a Chilul Hashem. You better behave, you better act nicely to your non-Jewish teachers because it's a Chilul Hashem, it's Chilul Hashem. We need a little bit more of the, sometimes that strengthening here. Okay, you throw garbage on the floor, that's a Chilul Hashem, right? Okay, all those things. So what is really, though, what does it mean? Kiddush Hashem, Chilul Hashem. Shame, right? To sanctify Hashem's name. What does it mean to sanctify Hashem's name? To spread his good name. To give to others the ability to smell Hashem's goodness, right? To understand, wow, well, if I see you doing something good, if I see you doing chesed, if I see you shining your light, if I see you being kind, right? We're giving off a scent. And that scent that we're giving off is actually being nikar. It's a spiritual scent. All scent is spiritual, but this is extremely a spiritual scent. And I'm thinking maybe the word ascent and scent are somehow related, okay? But we're giving off this spiritual, because yes, something spiritual, right? So we're giving off this spiritual attraction of consciousness of Hashem. And it's the same thing, the opposite, right? A person who pollutes the atmosphere, can you keep pollution just to yourself? No, we know that it doesn't work like that, right? The fact that there's pollution going on in Haifa affects them more because they're right there. It also affects us. In fact, it affects people even in Chutz La'aretz. It affects people even in Japan, right? The famous butterfly experiment in Japan, which I still haven't figured out how anyone proved that, but I do believe it's true. At least in a spiritual sense, it's definitely true. Is it true in a physical sense? I don't know. Not a scientist. But what they say is that a butterfly flaps its wings in Japan, the breeze is felt in Washington, D.C., right? Everything that we do sends out spiritual energy. And a scent is a very strong spiritual energy. So the pasuk here is saying, Hashem, your name is so good that this is why all of the maidens came to you. And Rashi says this is what happened by Yetzias Mitzrayim. All of the different nations heard what miracles Hashem had done for Klal Yisrael. And they said, wow, we need to see what this is. Let's go check it out. So the good smell of Klal Yisrael went out, the miracles went out, the good smell of Hashem went out, and it brought many people to follow the scent and come back in. Okay, so that was Rashi. The Alshech HaKadosh says the following. L'reach shmanecha tovi. Hine etla HaKadosh Baruch Hu yeshtei mine hanhagos. And the Alshech is going to say this a lot in Shir HaShirim. There are two different ways that HaKadosh Baruch Hu interacts with us. Hanhaga l'mala me'ateva, supernatural interactions with us. V'hanhaga al pi teva, and natural interactions with us. V'hanhaga l'mala me'ateva nahag be'ayin nir'ah ata Hashem. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu is interacting with us in a way which is l'mala min ateva, which is supernatural, right? It's something super special. V'gambi then asher ayin ba'ayin nir'ah ata Hashem. We see HaKadosh Baruch Hu with our eyes, meaning our consciousness is so awakened, we can perceive Hashem with our physical senses. V'gam biyoso ba'artza, k'ne'emar, eretz asher einei Hashem Elokecha ba. And especially when we're in Eretz Yisrael, in the land which says, Eretz asher Hashem Elokecha ba, the land which HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, his presence is even more accessible, it's even more noticeable. V'doresh ota tamid, and we're constantly seeking HaKadosh Baruch Hu out. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is constantly seeking us out. And we feel it more. It's more potent. It's more obvious. It's a better. And in the natural way, Noheg HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Klal Brioso B'chol Uma V'lashon. And for the natural way, well, that's how everything else works, right? When we're not in supernatural, we're natural. And outside of Eretz Yisrael, it's natural, right? You very rarely do you get a supernatural. And supernatural doesn't just mean in the nace. We have nisim all the time. Supernatural means that all of a sudden that consciousness is so attuned and so aware, and we can see it and feel it or hear it or smell it, right? And now this Moshe Rabbeinu daven. And remember, the Alshech made Aliyah, right? He moved to Eretz Yisrael with the Mechaber, with Rav Shlomo Alkabetz, right? He's in Oleh, just like us, okay? And who did he make Aliyah with? He made Aliyah with Anusim, with people from Spain who had pretended to be Christians in order to avoid execution, and now we're clandestine journey to Eretz Yisrael to go back to living as full Jews and keeping the Torah and the mitzvahs. When you have all these people sitting in one party, okay, in one place, and they're all drinking wine, and all of a sudden a stranger walks in. He's not only a stranger, but his whole customs are strange. His whole demeanor is strange. He's very different. V'nafsham na'alebo yuchlo tekef la'aroto ki nafsham b'chalobo im lo yikrenu ela shulchan v'lo yoshitu lo kos yayin. So we're all sitting, right? We're talking. We're in the middle. Or, imagine we're sitting in a restaurant, and all of a sudden, right? Somebody that we don't know, dressed differently, obviously not from here, obviously not from around, even around, noticeably different, comes in. Would it be normal for us to say, oh, why don't you come join us? No, right? It wouldn't be such a big deal if we didn't say, come and join us, right? It would be normal. And does that person expect us to invite him?
No.
Probably not, right? So that's if we're sitting and we're eating or we're drinking wine. But what happens if we're all sitting here and I open up this amazing bottle of of oil, right? Shemen of Parsimon, Coco Chanel, whatever, right? Tresor, and start spraying it around. Can I say I'm only sharing this scent with you, but it's not for anybody else? No, doesn't work like that, right? I open up a scent and everybody gets to enjoy it, right? My sister lived for a short time next to Angel's Bakery in Yerushalayim, in Kiryat Moshe, right? Oh my gosh, I'm telling you, I gained like 50 pounds just from like my visits to her house. Like you just smell it and you can't control it, right? It smells so good, right? And what about a bad smell? What about when the sewage backs up? So can we say the sewage is backing up, but don't worry, you're not going to smell it, right? Sewage backs up, we all smell it. There's no control, there's no selection over scent. You open it, it's there. Wine, food, to partake in that, I have to say, invite you, right? I have to give you a specific invitation. I have to be willing to share with you. But scent, no choice in the matter. You open it, right? Shibarta, shilamta. You opened it, you're stuck with it. That's it. But we let the cat, how does it say? You let the cat out of the bag, you can't get it back yet. The genie out of the bottle. Okay. As lo nuchal latzor, we can't stop the scent, the good scent, from being smelled by even this stranger that we have no intention of, we don't want to share with him. V'zehu bakashat ha'le'um ha'yisraeli, and this is the request of the Jewish nation. Yishakeni ki tovim toidecha meyayim. Your goodness, Hashem, is better than wine, because your goodness, Hashem, doesn't need to be only by invitation. You're a reach tov. You're a good scent who's inviting everybody at all times. Hu hanhaga lemala me'atev. Yayin, wine, and eating at a suda, that's natural. That's supernatural, right? Because you have to be specifically invited and specifically given it. Asher mehanhaga zu lo nahaga, od shum uma v'lashon mehanhaga zu noda. And this is a special thing for us, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us the Torah, that's Yayin, that's Mishteh. He invited us to come sit at his Suda. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu was even greater than that, because even the people that weren't invited, but the l'reach shemanecha, but your good smelling scent, that's nature. And everybody benefits from nature. Everybody could come to consciousness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and spirituality and deep emotional, intellectual, mental connection to the Creator, Hashem, from nature, from the scent. V'nehagim kol ba'ei olam, and everybody receives it. Al kein b'shvil hanhaga zu af alemos avucha. So we love you because you gave us this special invitation to come to your Suda. You gave us the Torah. You gave us Yayin, right? And Mishteh. But even the entire world loves you because, Nachon, you didn't invite them to the party, but you gave them this amazing scent. And they too benefit from your greatness. And they too have a path to find you and to seek you out. Kol hayitzur yahavucha. And every single creation has the capacity and the wiring to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Aval bakashasenu, but what's our request? Shetitnaheg imanu b'hanhaga nisit. But what do we want? We don't just want the scent. We want it all. We want the full package. We want the scent, and we want the yayin, and we want the exclusivity. We want it all, Hashem, because that's even the best. And when we demonstrate to the nations that, yeah, we could pursue a lot of things, we could do a lot of things. We as Jews have contributed to the economic development of every country we've ever lived in, to the scientific development, to the industrial development, to the educational, right, to the psychological, right, all the great psychologists, they're all Jewish, right, or had Jewish neighbors or were raised by a Jewish nanny, something like that, right? So we have all of these tremendous contributions, despite the fact that our percentage of population is very little. But what's the most important thing to us? The most important thing to us is you, Hashem. Is you, is our connection to you, is being Jewish, is not just bagels and lox, right? But that extra consciousness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that Hashem gave us. And we say, Hashem, this is how we want to live. We want to live in Eretz Yisrael. We want to live a Hanhagan Nisit, and we live a Hanhagan Nisit. We don't even realize what a Hanhagan Nisit. Who spent their Shavuos reminiscing about last year? Do you remember last year what Shavuos was last year? We were in our bomb shelters for 2 hours straight, right? Another one. There was the Nefilah in Tzfat, right? Again, Erev Shavuos, and Shavuos. Right? Everyone who went back to sleep after staying up all night was woken up, right? The Koiles and the Brokim, a different version of it. So we had tremendous nis, and that is Hanhaga Nisit. To live the way that we live is Hanhaga Nisit. I saw this very short clip yesterday, which I would like to watch the rest of the.
Could you just translate?
Miraculous in living miraculously. We're living on a miracle. So I saw this clip about there's this podcast of Jewish money, right, where they talk about money issues, halachic issues, and they were talking about how is it possible, right? How does it work that people who have so many children, how do they buy an apartment ever? Forget about buying an apartment for a kid, helping out a kid, marrying off a kid. How do they make it through the month, right? And so they have all these different ways that they can explain it, and we don't, necessarily go on vacations to Chul 3 times a year, or we don't do this, or we don't do that. But the bottom line is, it's a miracle.
Yes.
It's a miracle. It is a miracle. Our economic survival as a nation is a miracle, even though we have a lot of wealthy people, that's true. But the average person and the less than average person, me talk to somebody who lives in America who's got to pay tuition for 9 kids. If you get a 50% discount, that's more than what I make in a year. That's just for tuition, right? How do you do that? Right? And then there's other expenses. There's a lot of expenses there. There's a lot of expenses here too, right? But we're Baruch Hashem. The only expense that I wish I had here that they have is camp.
That's great.
Well, sending your teenagers away for 2 months. That's like the golden lamp. But actually, there is a sleepaway camp in Tzfat that my youngest is going to. All my other kids are too old. But Baruch Hashem, sleepaway camp has finally come there. Now it's complete. There is no reason that anyone should even entertain the idea of living in Chutz La'aretz. So, but it's our expression to HaKadosh Baruch Hu saying, this is what we feel, this is what we want. So we choose to live in Eretz Yisrael, where we have, and by the way, that's not really true that we choose, right? We were chosen to live in Eretz Yisrael, right? Because there are many, many people, including great tzaddikim like the Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Nachman, who tried to get to Eretz Yisrael, and they never succeeded, okay? So we were chosen to live in Eretz Yisrael. And it's actually, it's a schus, right? I mean, if we look back to our great-grandparents, right? Great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, their dream was maybe I will die and be buried in Eretz Yisrael. That would be already fantasy land, right? The schut to be buried in Eretz Yisrael. It was to live in Eretz Yisrael, to be able to go to makom kadosh, to pass by the Bas Medrash Shem Be'ever every morning, right? To borrow eggs and milk from Nachum Ish Gamzu, right? He's my neighbor, right? Okay, this is mind-boggling, right? Mind-boggling. So many people wanted and had tremendous ratzon to come to Eretz Yisrael, tremendous ratzon to come to Eretz Yisrael, tremendous ratzon to live in Yerushalayim. But Hashem somehow, we were zeichen. Why? Matnas chinam. We have no idea how we got here. We have no idea how we got. to this.
But even that we want that now, we wanted to do it because like there are people next to people like they don't want it. But there are plenty of people who like want to come or like kind of want to like other people wanted it enough to do it. Like to have that fire of the want is it's a gift.
There are many people who wanted b'chol libam, but they have miniot, right? They can't. They have to take care of a sick parent. They have a child who they can't leave. They have people have real excuses. And then there are people who like don't even think about it, right? I had the pleasure, I say it's my pleasure. It was not the pleasure of the woman who sat next to me one time on a bus from Muncie to Williamsburg, right? So I'm sitting next to this woman. She said to me, "Where are you from?" I said, "Eretz Yisrael." So she goes, "Oh, wow." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Have you ever been to Eretz Yisrael?" She said, "No." I said, "How could that be? How could that be that you're a 30-something-year-old woman who has never been to Eretz Yisrael?" Right? So she said, I said, "So what do you know about Eretz Yisrael?" She goes, "The food is spicy. There's lots of falafel." I'm like, "You should really, do you know it's a mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael? It's a mitzvah to come to Eretz Yisrael. There's trumot, there's matzah." I start giving her my whole thing that like, if you have a grain of wheat growing next to a cinema, which has inappropriate movies in Tel Aviv, right? That wheat is holy, right? You have to take maasrot from it. You have to do trumot from it, right? And if you have wheat growing in the holiest Bas Medrash, shul, in Lakewood, in Williamsburg, in Muncie, and wherever, you don't have to take maasrot from it. It's not holy, right? Like, and she was like, "Oh my God," like, and there was a horrible traffic jam too. She was stuck with my whole long, thing about why you should come to Eretz Yisrael and why you should at least visit Eretz Yisrael and you should want to come to Eretz Yisrael and that's our home. And she's like, "Okay, when Mashiach comes." No, not when Mashiach comes. Now, right? So I should have turned Chabad on her and said, "Mashiach is already here," right? Not just now, but it was a very interesting experience. Very interesting experience. But to talk to people there are people who have no consciousness of it, and miskenim, they are miskenim. But our job also is living here, right? Is chalila never to fall into the trap of the spies, right? The spies didn't lie when they spoke about Eretz Yisrael. The spies said Eretz ocheles es yoshvehi. It's a land which consumes its inhabitants, and that's a fact. It's a fact. Rabbi Nachman explains it in a mind-boggling way. Did I already say this? This is mind-boggling. What this is, I think it's Torah Samech Zayin or somewhere around Samech something. Rabbi Nachman says that when the spies came back and they said Eretz ochelet et yoshvehi, they meant it literally. What happens in Eretz Yisrael? In Eretz Yisrael, the spies came and they saw that the giants were burying their dead. So the land consumes its inhabitants. It's like eating. What happens when we eat something? What did you eat for supper last night? I'm putting you on the spot today. Oh, yeah. Now you're going to get a punishment, right? Now you're going to have, where's the chocolate? Cheese. Okay, you had cheese. Okay. What happened when you ate that cheese?
I hope you had wine with it.
We'll fix that too. Okay, no, you ate cheese, right? When you ate the cheese, you broke it down, right? Yeah. You chewed it, right? And then you swallowed it, and then it went into your stomach, which is basically a food processor, which broke it down, and then it went into, part of it went to the kidneys, went to the liver, it goes all over the place, big intestine, small intestine. Where is that cheese today? Well, part of it is your new skin cells, right? Right? You have new skin cells today. So that's where the cheese. Rabbi Nachman says that's exactly what happens when a person comes to Eretz Yisrael. The land consumes them and they get broken down. As it says, Eretz Yisrael, niknes b'yedei Yisurim. Eretz Yisrael is acquired through Yisurim, hardships. So Eretz Yisrael is acquired through hardships. We're broken down. But what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu take out from us? He takes out the vitamin A, the vitamin B, the vitamin C, the vitamin D, emuna, vitamin A, bitachon, vitamin B, simcha, vitamin C, tvekus, vitamin D. It takes us So the psolet, what happens to the psolet? All what is not good for the body, it goes out, right? We get an asher yatzar, right? So the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when a person comes to Eretz Yisrael, breaks down a person, takes out the vitamins, uplifts them. So Rabbi Nachman says, you see a cow today wandering in a field, right? What is that cow? A cow. It's an animal, right? So we have dirty. Yes, it is dirty. Oh, what did you say? Dinner. Okay. Me to you. Okay. So we see the cows grazing, right? And what do we see? Ribeye, chuck, right? Cholent, whatever. And that's exactly what happens. But what happens then? Today, it's a cow. It's a chaya. It's an animal. Filthy, in the field. And when we eat it, and when we make a bracha on it, right? And we consume it, where is that cow today? Where's the cheese today? Well, it's my eyelashes, and it's my skin, and it's my cells, and it's my heart, and it's my lungs, and it's my liver. So the chicken that I ate on Shabbos, the fish that I ate on Shabbos, this chicken, this fish was walking around in a lul. Where is it now? Wow, it got a huge upgrade. Now it's sitting and learning Shir HaShirim with a bunch of tzadikot. So that chicken just went from being an animal, got bumped up to being a medaber, a speaking being, got bumped up to being a Yisrael, right? Rabbi Nachman says when a person comes to Eretz Yisrael, they have a soul. Everybody has a soul. And this is where the nefesh b'nefesh comes from. There, when we come, we get, our old soul is broken down, and we get a new soul, an upgraded soul. We go from Chutz La'aretz soul to Eretz Yisrael soul, but doesn't end there. Because then this is the best part. This is how you start all my tours of Kibbutz Tzadikim with this. Every Dalet Amos, every 4 Amot measurements that you walk in Eretz Yisrael in a new place, you get another upgrade. You go to Kivrei Tzadikim, Rabbi Nachman writes, you get another upgrade. You go to holy sites, you get another upgrade. So we're in Eretz Yisrael, we don't just come in and get nefesh b'nefesh, exchange one soul for the other, but we're constantly upgrading. We have the iPhone of the soul, door 5006, right? Because we're constantly upgrading. So the spies, this is the point, right? The spies, did they lie? They didn't lie. They said the truth exactly the way it was. They actually were mechabe to something very deep. So what did they do wrong? They cried about it. And they said, we can't handle this. We can't handle all this change, right? People, we like to be comfortable. We don't like to leave our area of nochut, right? Our bodies are made to keep the same temperature at all times. And when a person gets a fever, it's upsetting to them. It's disturbing. It's difficult, right? When our temperature changes. So they said, we're going to constantly be upgrading. Constantly upgrading means constantly being eaten, broken down, going through that dark tunnel after being chewed, right? I just got chewed out from somebody, right? Get chewed, and then we go in this dark tunnel, and then we're broken down. We're going to do this again and again and again. And what does this remind you of? Klal Yisrael, Yishakeni mineshikos piu, right? Wow, everybody wants this experience. But wait a second, we're gonna die again. We're gonna get resurrected. This is too intense. So there are people who, and this was the sin of the spies. The sin of the spies was, we cannot handle that intensity. It's too much for us, right? We can't do that. We can't constantly be upgrading, constantly be changing. I don't even like it when my mother switches the couch, right? And buys a new couch. I want the old couch, right? I want my blankie from when I was little, okay? Whatever that is, right? I do not like change. So maybe a little change, but that constant changing, that constant upgrade, that constant, who am I, right? Isn't it great? Wouldn't it be great if we just one time, and this is what I thought as a teenager, right? There's going to come a time where I am going to figure out who I am, and that's it, right? That's the end of the story. So in high school, in seminary, you figure out who you are, and that's it, right? Because by age 25, your personality is developed. So that's who I am, right? Finished. It doesn't work like that, right? We're constantly rediscovering ourselves. So there are many people who choose, I'll stay that 25-year-old. 25 is good, right? I'll buy the 25-year-old and not the 13-year-old or the 12-year-old or the 3-year-old, right? I'll stay that 25-year-old. I can't upgrade, really upgrade. Like, I know what I need in life. I know what I want. If you want the same things you did as a 25-year-old, oy vavoy, because that's the same thing as wanting the same thing as a 3-year-old. And in the end, what is that? Hashem, give me mastikim, right? We're back to the gum. So today you want to win the lottery. Yesterday, it's all the same thing. What do I really want for myself as a developed soul? What is going to be and we never get an answer to that question, right? There's this Gemara, which one of my teachers told me once, which I took way too intensely and in a little bit in the wrong way. And she told me that it says in the Gemara, in Maseches Brachos, all of these people are saying about why they merited long life, okay? And what zchut they have. And they all have different answers, but they all start out with one word, meyamai. I always did this. I focused on this mitzvah. I never missed Kriya Shema. I never missed an opportunity of kibbud of. I never missed it. And she said to me, you need to be more consistent, right? You need to be consistent because consistency is everything. Now, consistency is extremely important, but consistency is sometimes benignud, contradicts, or impedes upon growth, right? So if I have I set my bar here, I might be consistent, but what about growth? What about adding? What about expanding? Or what about sometimes growth is not adding or expanding, it's refocusing. So sometimes I'm supposed to be focused on my tefillah, and I'm supposed to spend a lot of time davening. And sometimes I'm supposed to be focused on human beings around, right? And supposed to be more active. Sometimes I'm supposed to be more pensive. So if I say every day I'm saying X amount of program of Tehillim and it's consistent, and again, consistency is a good thing. But what if consistency impedes my growth? What is the fact that I have to say every day, Sefer Rishon Sheni of Tehillim, because that's what I do, because that's my consistent Tehillim? What if that starts to impede upon other things, right? So is there one golden rule? The golden rules are what the Torah tells us are the golden rules, right? The Torah tells us do this, don't do that. Those are the golden rules. The rest, you got to figure it out. And it's constantly evolving, it's constantly changing, and it's constantly challenging us to reassess our values and our priorities. Okay, so the Klal Yisrael saying to Hashem two things. We're saying, one, we want to go back to what it was. We want to go back to direct contact. We want to go back to that extremely high level of consciousness. Because even though the whole world has this amazing opportunity to connect with Hashem through nature, we want to be invited to the party, right? We want an invitation to this exclusive party. And we regret that we said that the party was too noisy. So we left, right? We didn't stay till the end, till they gave away the bags, right? With all the goodies. We thought the party's over. The famous story that Rabbi Nachman says about Moror, right? You know this story? He gives a mashal where there's two business partners traveling. And they're traveling on business. And one is a goy, one is a yid. They didn't make it back for Pesach. They're trapped in this far-flung village for Pesach where they were doing their business. And they're staying at an inn, and it's Leil HaSeder, and the Jew says to his non-Jewish partner, he says, listen, tonight is the biggest feast of the year. 4 cups of wine, right? Good wine. Meat, really good. Come with me to the shul. We'll stand in the back of the synagogue. When everybody goes home, they'll ask you if you want to come with them, and go with them, right? And be patient, right? Because we say a lot of stuff. It's not, rub-a-dub-dub, thanks for the grub, right? It's a whole thing. Be patient, and you are going to get the best meal of your life. So the non-Jew is really excited. So, he goes to shul, he does the, the bowing and what everyone else is doing, monkey see, monkey do, figures it out, and he gets an invitation. And so they say, okay, father stands, they say kadosh, they sing the kiddush, and he's like, okay, he said, I have to be patient, but this is taking long, right? And then finally he gets a cup of wine. Wow, a cup of wine on an empty stomach. This is going to be interesting. He gets the cup of wine, and then, okay, the next course is a tiny bit of potato dipped in salt water. This is the best meal of the year. And he's waiting and he's waiting and he's waiting. And these people, they don't stop talking. They're like the Charles Dickens of he got paid per word, right? So they're like, he's going mad out of his mind. These people, they just don't stop. And then finally a second cup of wine. Okay, wine is great, but hungry. Matzah is a little bit dry, right? And then what comes next? A bitter herb, maror, and he's had it. He spits out the bitter herbs and he says, that's it. I'm finished. You people are nuts, right? And he goes back to the inn and he waits for his partner. The partner comes home, a little drunk, a little tipsy, patting his stomach, right? All full, barely move, rolling into the inn. And he goes, wasn't that great? And his partner said, great. That was the weirdest experience I had in my life. I'm waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for some food. And all they serve me is this tiny piece of potato, waiting and waiting and waiting. And then a cracker with this most spicy, that was disgusting. What is the matter with you people? He said, if you would have just waited another couple minutes, you would have gotten the meat and the kugel and the tzimis and the kremslach, whatever, right? Whatever foods they were serving. And the knedlach, they were, depending on what part of Europe they were in, right? Or the Pesach deluction, right? Nothing like Pesach deluction. And blintzes and liver and And that's, Rabbi Nachman says, that's life. We wait, and we wait. And we think that, oh my gosh, I'm waiting forever, right? And then, this is it. And what do we get? Maror. And so instead of sticking around and saying, what's coming next, right? We leave. We say, this is crazy. I don't have patience for this. And we give up. Right before Shulchan Aruch, right before the main course, right before the good food, right before the rack of lamb, right? Dinner, the cow, the chuck, the everything, the whole what? And so this is what Klal Yisrael is saying here. We regret this. We regret this so much, and our regretting of this is the good scent which is sent out to the rest of the nation, which attract them to Hashem, which help signal them and give off a scent of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's good name. So the Alshech concludes, Kol hayitzur yahavuch, aval bakashasenu, our request, shetitneheg imanu b'hamhaga nisid. We want to live a life of miracles. We want to live a life of super consciousness. V'az ra'u kol amei haaretz, and then all of the other nations will see ki Shem Hashem nikra aleinu, that the name of Hashem is called upon us, v'yir'u mimenu, and they will be in awe and fear of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that is Klal Yisrael's request in Pasuk Gimmel. I'm sorry, I have to leave. I think I'm running a little late.
Yeah, thank you.